And I can't bring them back, but I can tell the people that I can tell.
How did you find carnivore?
Well, I'm going to start by saying that I don't technically consider myself carnivore. I actually still consider myself keto. However, when I tell people what I do, there's debate about that. And so basically, I would say about 5.5 years ago, no, 6 years ago, I had problems all of a sudden with my hip and like extreme pain, basically not being able to walk very well or even step up on a sidewalk, which is the thing that caught my attention the most when I couldn't step up on a sidewalk one day. Climbing stairs was hard, etc. And I started to do some research to try to figure out how do I solve a hip problem because I initially thought it was a weight problem, to be honest, because I was more than 80 pounds overweight at the time. And so I tried to lose weight the typical ways. And the only thing that I figured out helped me to feel a little better was going for walks, like really long walks. Like if I walk for an hour in my day, then I could walk normally. Sorry. I could walk normally and, well, sit. I was unable to sit for long periods of time. It was really weird what was happening with my hip, I'll be honest. And I didn't know what it was. So eventually, I did some research because the walking helped. I didn't lose a pound, but the walking helped. And that helped me to understand that I had an inflammation problem. And that helped me to understand that carbohydrates cause inflammation. And that's how I found keto. So I started off keto. And I would say I've been keto for 5.5 years. And my push towards eating mostly meat happened, I would say, probably 2 years ago. And that happened naturally because, and I would love to say it's because of all the medicinal whatever. It's because I'm lazy. I don't like to cook, and it's easier to make meat than it is to make vegetables. But what I did notice is that when I started to have these days where I just ate the meat, I felt better. So even though I was already feeling great because I had lost, it took me 5 months, by the way, to lose 80 pounds. So I wasn't still doing it for weight anymore. I was doing, and I never started it for weight, by the way. So it's like that interesting thing where I was doing it because as I was doing it, I felt amazing. My hip pain went away. Actually, I had knee pains from the time I was about 22, 23. I had back pains from the time that I was about like early, maybe late 20s, early 30s. Elbow pain started as well. I had a stiff neck that I had to get treatments for, which started my chiropractic journey that I was doing up until 5 years ago. I was going monthly, but before that, I was going weekly at certain periods of time. So there was a lot going on with me that had to do with inflammation that I just didn't understand was inflammation. And I started my keto journey to solve the hip portion and solved all of that. So the reason I kept going with keto wasn't, I mean, it was nice to lose the weight. I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't nice to lose the weight, but it was because I was feeling amazing. And then you add to that all the other benefits that I got because I didn't know that I could actually think clearer than I was already thinking. And I didn't know I could have the energy, like more energy than I already had. Because I want to say, Dave, that even though I had um, all these physical pains, I walked through the world looking like I was fine. First of all, like I hid that like nobody knew. But second of all, I still did a bunch of activities. I rode my bike. I took my daughter bike riding. I took my daughter to tree climbing. I took like at some point I just decided like I'm in pain anyway. I'm just gonna do my thing. So it's so much nicer today to do those things without the pain. And so 2 years ago, when I just said, why am I cooking the stuff that I'm learning from doctors I don't even need to be eating? And it got me down to the point where today I don't actually cook vegetables. So the only time I have a vegetable is if my spouse is cooking. If he's not cooking, I'm not having a vegetable, which means that generally speaking, I might have some kind of veg once or twice a week. And when I do have veg, it's under 10 grams of carb, because the other thing I figured out for myself was that, unfortunately, I have a problem with, like, my insulin resistance was so high, I can't even eat 20 grams of carbs. So once I get to like 18-ish, my pain comes back and I'm struggling. I'm not thinking clearly. And so I just, I brought it down to, if I eat any, it's 10 or less. So that's how my journey started.
I just there's one part that I just want to kind of hone in on first, and that's that I can't believe you're in so much pain in your 20s.
Yeah. It started in my 20s, my knees, and it
Hmm.
just kept getting worse and worse. I actually went to see a sports doctor because, right, their knees. And I mean, I love how we make stories in our heads. So I was convinced that my pain, my injuries, my pains were all due to sports. When the hip happened, that was the one that broke my delusion. Because I mean, okay, yes, I played badminton like 3 times a week, not competitive, for fun, right? And then at another point in time, I was playing. I was going skiing once a week. It's nowhere near enough to cause the injuries that I was walking around with, right? And when my hip happened, I hadn't even been doing anything. And that's kind of where the illusion got busted. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not doing anything. How come my hip is hurting? But I realized that this is the thing we do, right? Like, we tell ourselves stories to make things make sense. And so I lived 23 years in pain because I was telling myself a story to fit how I was feeling. And as soon as the story didn't match anymore and I actually looked into it, I realized, oh, it's something else.
Then you find out that it's just the inflammation caused by carbohydrate. Does that make you feel kind of frustrated or angry in any way that like you've gone so many years in pain?
Okay, so the anger came. Like, I've had medical things before where the anger at doctors was there because they weren't taking my understanding of my body seriously. So one example I can give is going to my doctor. No, it wasn't my doctor. In fairness, it was a clinic. Going to the clinic, and my left thigh was numb. Weird, out of nowhere. That's why I went to the clinic. I didn't want to wait for an appointment with my doctor. I went straight to the clinic. For the person to tell me, oh, you know what happens sometimes, you need to learn to live with it. Like, that was the solution that was put in front of me. It's like, no, like, that doesn't make sense, right? Obviously, I didn't learn to live with it. I don't know what made it go away, though. So I can't put my finger on that one. The second time was when I went for this hip issue and was told it's not bad enough for surgery yet. So there's nothing we could do. So, like, what's the message there? Wait until it gets worse and then we'll do the surgery. And I was like, no. Right? Like but these things already put me in the position that I was angry at medical. And I'm not the person to wait. Like we have Medicare here and I still pay for services for my daughter. Like, we don't wait. Right? So like, to me, there has to be an answer right now. So when it happened that I got that answer from my doctor and I started to do my research, I feel like the anger became anger. So there was frustration maybe at the beginning, but it became anger when I read, I want to say, Mark Hyman's book, What the Heck Should We Eat? Food, What the Heck Should We Eat? When I read that book, I became angry because he's talking about things that are happening with food that go back like early 1900s, that we're manipulating people to eat stuff we should. That's when I got angry. But and that's when I decided I needed to talk about this stuff, right? That's when I started my channel. But yeah, the frustration with medical has kind of always been there because I have all these things and the answers I get never quite solve them, but I didn't understand at the time. I just thought, okay, I'm a special case. That's what I thought, right? Or even if I thought that was a dumb answer, but I still look for another answer. I didn't believe him that, oh, you need to live with it. That didn't make sense to me. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that does answer my question. The reason I'm quite interested in that is because I had a similar thing. Like when I was in my later 20s, like I had this intermittent back pain,
Hmm.
and it never ended, and it was just standing up and sitting down and being seated was painful. And it's just inflammation.
Yeah.
As soon as you stop eating the junk, it goes away. And but it's so frustrating because you go to doctors, you go and see people, and it's always the same kind of thing. Oh, it's just, it happens, or, um, you get it, you even get you're getting old, it just happens as you get older. And, you know, the, the fact they even said to you, oh, it's not bad enough to do something about it yet. It's like, so I just got to kick around until it gets worse.
And this is the second time I had,
That's my option.
and that was the second time that was said to me,
Mm,
because I also went for it's like sleep tests and whatever, and I got the same answer. It's like, oh, it's not bad enough. It's like, what are
yeah.
you talking about? Like this idea that we should wait till we're sicker so they can give us a medication rather than doing the the thing that would stop the problem from progressing.
Mm.
So I've had that 3 times in my life.
So you've lost 80 pounds. That pain's gone away. Anything else that's improved for you over the time, or any other changes?
So the things that I find surprising were like I got a lot of the benefits of a keto lifestyle immediately. So the improved mental clarity, the energy, the pain going away. That was like my biggest thing. The weight loss, like I said, 5 months. It was kind of like wow. Um, and as a matter of fact, just you know, there's so many people that start keto for weight loss, but then because they started for weight loss, they don't pay attention to these other benefits, first of all. But second of all, they started for weight loss, they hit their goal, and then they go back to eating junk. And of course, the weight comes back. I feel like I love to tell people I have violet syndrome because I feel like because I have this syndrome where as soon as I touch the wrong thing, I'm crying. I've been able to change and now like I feel amazing and I'm not even tempted by the wrong foods. So, most people start and then they stop because they hit their goal. When you have a goal, like I guess like ours, because it's a never-ending goal. If I eat wrong, I feel bad. So it's not about weight. And I think that the one thing that I got from keto slash now carnivore-ish, because I still eat veg, um, is an understanding of what my body actually needs. And when you eat carbohydrates, we need to understand we're doing that for fun, right? Like that's the entertainment on the plate. And I've gotten to the point where I'm more and more deciding I don't want entertainment on my plate, right? Because if you leave entertainment on your plate, then eventually you overeat it, right? At somehow, somewhere, you end up oh, a little bit more, oh, a little bit more, a little bit, right? So, I mean, I eat things just to let you know what veg that I make at home when I'm the one cooking. Two things that are going to be on my plate: olives because I count them and I eat exactly a number, or one avocado. It's very hard to overeat it when that's the number. It's one avocado. I'm not going to ever have two, and it's rare that I don't finish the avocado, but it's one. And I think just by doing that, it's made it very easy for me to not even have to think about it. Now, if my spouse is cooking, I mean, if he cooks something that I actually like, I'll have a bit of it, but then we weigh it, right? I'm not going over 20. So, I mean 10. And like that's what it is. So yeah, I think being in pain is such a motivation to I don't like being in pain. And I didn't know I could get away from it. That was if I would have known this 20 years ago, 100%. but I didn't know. Now that I know, there's no way that I see people kind of fall off, and I say it all the time. It's because you're not in pain, right? It's like, yes, you get angry when the weight comes back, but it's because you weren't in pain that you let yourself fall off.
Really good way to think about it. Like, as you mentioned, most people are thinking about the goal is just to lose weight. And so once they've reached that goal, that's it. Okay, well, I've lost the weight. I went to the wedding. I'm just going to go back to eating normally. And then, of course, what happens? Like you say, they put the weight back on. But for us, it's more about, we don't want to, we don't want the pain back, and that's a really big motivator because we know how horrible that is, right? Nothing worse than trying to stand up and not being able to, or having the twinges in the joints when you step up on the curb or something.
And for me,
Mm.
it was even so going back to why I started to say that, because like when I started to do all of this and the pain went away and I was feeling better and the weight was coming down because I wasn't at goal weight yet. I went to a restaurant and you tell them no vegetables, and then they put um, fried potato on the plate. Well, that's not a vegetable. Yes, it is, but whatever. And so I was early in my journey, and I'm like doing the math, and I'm like, okay, I can have one little piece of potato because like it's gonna fall under my 20 at the time. Only to find out that that night, from eating like a piece of potato that was sincerely like this big, I wake up screaming in pain. And my spouse is like, what the hell? And it was like this big freak out that happens. But then like the next day I'm fine. It's like, okay, that was weird. And luckily, because I track everything, the next time it happened, because I can't remember, but I had another, so it turned out nightshade, because it wasn't the potato specifically, but I had a different kind of nightshade. Again, wake up in pain. And so I think the other thing that keto gave me, carnivore, low carb, like this whole world gave me, was an understanding that it's not just the carbohydrates that's been causing havoc in my body. I'm actually sensitive to nightshades. And I did some research, and guess what? Most people who have arthritis are sensitive to nightshades, and told that's impossible. There's not enough. I can't remember the name of the thing in it. There's not enough to harm a person. It only harms bugs. But I woke up screaming in pain. So what does that mean? Right. And I think the thing that I try to get people to see is that toxic is toxic for you, right? It might not be toxic for the next person. Well, maybe it is, but you're not noticing it. But when you get your food clean enough, your body will show you what else needs to go. Right. And that's the thing that I've learned and it's another reason that I'm so comfortable with all the things I've taken out of my diet, because I've noticed that the more you take away, the more your body shows you that, yeah, that's causing this rash, or, that's causing the, and we don't know because everything's there. So if we were talking analogies, it's like my basement's full of boxes and I clear the boxes out. There's a leak, right? And I wouldn't have known about the leak had I not cleared those boxes away. And that's the thing that we don't realize.
Did you say you've got two children?
I have one, my daughter, and then we
Uh-huh.
together we have three. There's
Oh, okay.
our twins boys. Yeah.
So how has it's been 6 years? How is how does your eating go with the meal preparation for the whole family?
So at this stage of the game, we have three 18-year-olds. Okay. So they're not always eating with us. That's how that goes. So what happens is that whatever meals I cook, so the meals I cook, and they eat what if I'm cooking. And Pat, he does do vegetables more often, so they'll eat what he's cooking. Now, I mean, sometimes I'll make things where there's going to be lettuce or salad or whatever on the plate on the table. There might be rice on the table. I don't eat it. So the kids, and this goes back to, when did we figure this out? We figured this out when they were already 13. So, and also the fact that we only have them half the time. So the boys go to their other home. So there's a lot of factors involved in why everyone, like, our children are not keto at all, right? Do I feel like they have a better understanding though after watching what we've gone through? Because we've both had health improvements. Yes. So I would say that after about a year of myself being keto, the kids, 2 out of 3 showed a real like understanding of like, wow, okay, look how Violet has changed. Look how Dad is changing. Like, okay, yes, like maybe we need to look at this. And then over the years, as they're teenagers and they're influenced by outside, not our house, ebbs and flows. But I still think that they all 3 eat better today with better understanding than they would have been eating had we not figured this out.
I've spoken to a few people about this kind of thing, and like, even if the kids are not following this kind of eating way at all, it's good that they're actually seeing their parents kind of do this, because in the future, should they have issues, health issues in any way, they you've been leading by example, and they can kind of go, yeah, I remember that a lot of these kind of issues can be cured just by changing the way you eat or just by eliminating particular foods. It's a good kind of primer, I think.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The other thing I'll say is that in some of the conversations I have with people, there's a resistance of the spouse slash children in how the person wants to eat. I could see where that would be difficult, in the sense that, but for me, it wasn't just because I didn't try at all to make everybody eat this way. Because and honestly, in my mind, I was thinking I have an inflammation, like me, like this is special to my whatever, right? At the beginning, I
Mm.
thought I'm just unlucky, right? Everybody has their illness, and I thought this is mine. It's only when I started to really like do more research and listen to all the doctors that I realized, no, this is everybody. This is not special to me, although the way that I'm expressing it is different than the way other people express it. Um, it doesn't change the fact that it's all coming from the same source. And so I think that it wasn't hard. I mean, we have pretty level-headed, smart kids. So, and luckily for us, they always like vegetables. So just switching it to be more veg than rice and potato, like just making that switch wasn't hard at all. They so I would say that at the beginning there was no change to their food. As we move forward, they eat like us at meals. Like whether they make their own breakfast, they make their own lunch, that's whatever they choose to have, but at mealtime they eat like us. And nobody is upset about it, right? I feel it's hard for people who live in those kind of houses where they're getting pushback, but I'm lucky. At least I didn't have that. I didn't have that issue.
How about with extended family, with friends, or what, do you ever get pushback, or are people just going, that's crazy?
So when I lost 80 pounds, 70, 80 pounds, um, there, when people saw me at the first time after not seeing me, it was kind of like, what did you do? What happened to you? Right. And there's interest up until there's the, wait, no bread, no potatoes, no, and then it's no rice, and then it's like, oh, I can't do that. And I mean, that's the standard answer. I think the only tricky thing was like places where I would eat more often. So before, I would say before, the world fell apart, when I would go over to friends and family to eat, it was more just making sure that I would know in advance, like, is there anything that I can eat, or am I eating before I go? And in the case where I didn't, like, they didn't have something, so let's say I arrive and then they told me they were cooking it one way, they cooked it a different way that I now can't eat it. it's kind of interesting how quickly I learned to just not eat. And so this is the other thing is, I mean, I do one meal a day, and I started doing that. I would say maybe in year two. It could have been earlier. One of the things I didn't do is track all these changes because I was just living my life. So I feel like it was in the first year, but it might have been the second year. I'm not really sure. But because I eat one meal a day, it became really easy for me to do, for example, 2-day fasts. Like that just kind of happened naturally. One time I went to my parents' home. They said they were having this. It turned out it was that. I was like, I'm not eating that. And then by the time I got home, I wasn't hungry anymore. And so I ate the next day at my normal time. And it was like, wow, that was interesting, right? I went all the way till the following Sunday and I was fine. And so then that just became every time they cook something I didn't like, it's like, oh, I'll eat tomorrow. And then eventually it just became a habit I was doing. So I feel like every once in a while we have situations where like the situation changes in a way that helps us to see that, oh, I could do something else. I I like the fact that I still do research, first of all, but I like the fact that just living my life, I can learn things about me, right? And see that, oh, things that I might have been afraid of 7, 8 years ago. Like, can you imagine not eating for 2 days? Right? Like that would have been like, what are you talking about? And now I look at it today and it's like it's not even a big deal.
How do you feel about this? Like, I actually feel that being able to fast like that is so empowering. 7 years ago, for me, even 2 years ago, I couldn't have gone 2 hours without eating, let alone 2 days. And just the fact that I can do that now and go, I'm gonna be out at some restaurant where they haven't got very good food with my friends, I can still enjoy their company, but I'm not going to eat. It's just such an empowering thing, I think.
Well,
How do you feel about it?
I love it because I love it in the sense that I'm always doing what's healthy for me. And
Mm.
that's not something that I could say in my history. And so just talking about the difference between standard diet and what we do today, I remember like when I worked, when I must have been in, yeah, my 20s, and I was working at a company. And every month they would have breakfast meeting, and the garbage on the table at the breakfast meeting, right? And we all ate it, myself included. I was overweight. I was eating this, and I felt like it's almost like they were giving me permission. Oh, yay, we get to have this for breakfast. And and I don't know that I would have ever felt comfortable just sitting there and not eating something, right? Because again, you're the overweight chick. So are you not eating because you're overweight? Right? So it's like no matter which way you go, eyes are on you. Whereas today, so let's see, since I've been at my healthy weight, my spouse and I had an event to go to, and it wasn't a meal, it was an event. We went to it, and then everyone's like afterwards said, oh, let's go get supper. And where do they go? To a restaurant. First of all, it wasn't supper time for me yet because I don't eat till much later, so it wasn't supper time for me yet. Or was it lunch? Maybe it was lunch, and I wasn't eating lunch at the time. But also they went to a restaurant that's like, yeah, there's nothing here for me. And at a table full of people eating, my spouse included, and I had a coffee. And I was perfectly fine with my coffee. And only one person asked me why I'm not eating. And I said, because I'm not hungry. Because that was the truth. I'm not hungry. So it's nice even to be able to be at the point today where I wasn't tempted. Like none of that. Well, again, when you're not hungry, you're not tempted, right? So it's like, it's kind of easier to do when you're just being honest with yourself. A bit of this is my personality in the sense that so when I grew up, my parents were very clear about the negatives that they have seen of people who drink or do other things. And they were always talking to us about like, be careful, right? Like they're not saying don't do it. They're saying, because you're gonna drink, they're saying, but just be smart about it because you could go down a path. So I grew up with this idea that no way. Is Violet ever going to be addicted to anything? Like that was in my head. Can you imagine? And so if you want to talk about like why I never went back, I did keto cold turkey. Yesterday, 300 something grams of carb. Today, tried to be 20. I wasn't successful, but tried to be 20. I ended up, I think, when I put it in my calculator, I was like 30 something. I didn't do my math properly, but whatever. I tried, but I went for 300 something to, and I did that for going forward. So what do you think happened to me? Withdrawal. And I can't even like explain how disappointed, frustrated, angry, like that was where I had my meltdown moment. How could I be addicted to something? I lived my entire life being so careful to never be addicted to anything. And here I was having to face that I was that. Dave, again, another part of the reason, first of all, withdrawal. Who would want to go through that twice? So there was no way I was going back to that. And that just solidified again. I had so many moments where I learned things about myself or my food or my situation. Again, that's why I'm talking about it. That's why I'm talking about it. Because I feel like people are just so unaware and it's unnecessary.
Someone who's interested in keto or carnivore or anything in between, if they're talking to you about it, how would you recommend they get started? Would you recommend they go cold turkey?
Personality plays a big role here. I'm that personality. My spouse did the slow thing. I don't know how he did it. My personality is such that if I let a little bit in, I'm just knowing myself because I went through lots of periods where I stopped eating chocolate. I'm like, this isn't helping my weight. And I would stop eating it. And then Easter would come around or Valentine's Day would come around. And I'm just going to have one little piece. And next thing you know, I'm eating it again. So I already knew my personality to know that I had to jump right in. I went from the 350 down to the 30, right? Eventually, I got down to my 20. It took me, and that took even just trying to just get to from 30 something to under 20, I believe took me a month and a half. Like even that, like it was a struggle. It was also tactics. I had the wrong tactics. So I'll give that was me not doing my research properly. But if you're the kind of person who can, like my spouse, slowly go down, there's no reason that you need to live those withdrawal symptoms except. So there's the one reason I think people should live them, they hurt. And it just helps you to understand you're not in control. So when you do the slowly thing, it feels like you're in control. You still have that last little bit. I mean, you're going to get to a certain number where if you don't push the envelope, you could stay in low carb land forever. Some people will do good in low carb land, so that's fine, right? Not everybody has the damage that myself and my spouse had, right? Depends on how old you are, depends on how much you, right? So there's a lot of factors there. But if you really want to get to our level, there's a moment where you're going to have to push it. But I think your personality makes the most is the most important piece of that puzzle.
I'm kind of that all or nothing mentality. I'm either a smoker or I'm not a smoker. I'm either a drinker or I'm not a drinker. So it's like I've just got to cut it. So you've talked about your spouse. Like he's been on a similar journey, but just hasn't kind of transitioned right across to the almost 100% animal based.
Yeah,
Would
he
that be fair to
never.
say?
Yeah, so we both did a carnivore challenge back. Wow, it must have been at least the 2 years ago or a little bit. Yeah, because that's when I decided I was like, hey, this is fun, not not cooking vegetables. So when we did that challenge, like we both did the month,
Hmm.
and so this is again, I feel like personality plays such a big role in our ability to do things like this. I've never been a person who's focused on food, so meals. My focus was snacks, right? Like that was where I was getting caught, chocolate, cookies, right? Like that was my thing. Versus like he likes meals, right? Like he will cook these nice meals. And I remember meeting him and like he would cook these elaborate meals, expecting me to be excited about it. And it's just like, it's not my thing. So like, yay, that's very beautiful. I love it. But like at the same time, if you would have made a smaller meal, I would have been just as fine. So I think that helps me in this story because I don't care about food.
Mm.
Whatever I'm eating, I'm eating. So when we did our carnivore challenge, the thing that I saw that was different between us is that like I would, and I still do. I'm making pork chops. I'm making pork chops. I'm making chicken, or maybe I'm having eggs, or maybe right. Like it's like, and I might put eggs with pork chops, or I might put eggs with chicken if if I felt like I needed more, and also because I recently learned from Dr. Berg that you should be eating more eggs. So like I tried to add more eggs into things, but it wasn't because of variety. It was more like, do I have enough on my plate?
Mm.
So if I didn't have enough on my plate, I would add some more stuff. Where I felt like he was cooking for variety. It's like I have to have want to have this and this and like so. There's multiple things on the plate for the variety of it because there was no veg. I think that makes a difference. I think that we have to look at ourselves because if I'm that kind of person that needs variety, I think he did it the right way, right? Then make sure that your plate has variety. Cook more than one kind of meat so you feel like you ate different things, right? Where I don't care about that. So I was able to just sit there and eat a bowl of ground beef and be like, okay, cool. And I go on with my day. He's not happy with that, right? So knowing your personality, I think, is always the base of this.
You talked about how you do one meal a day. So you go basically the whole day until dinner time
Yeah. So
without eating.
I eat usually around, somewhere between 7 and 9 in the evening, depending on my work day,
Mm.
because I work late. So I eat somewhere there, and throughout the day, I might drink tea or coffee. And
Mm.
in the evening, I drink a lot of water, actually, but that's just like because I have filtered water at home, not at the office. So I like my filtered water that I have at home. So during the day, I'll drink coffee or tea just because I don't like the water at work.
Mm.
But
Um,
I started to do my one meal a day naturally. That's the other thing. I didn't force it. It just happened. So I woke up, I didn't want breakfast. At some point, lunch was getting pushed back to a ridiculous time until I thought this doesn't make sense anymore, that I'm going to try to eat a lunch and then try to have a supper. And if I ate my lunch, it was like making me not want supper. But then it was kind of like I would rather be hungry later in the day when I'm home than early in the day when I'm at work. So I
mm.
let it get pushed backwards.
What's your go-to dinner? Like, do you like a
Ooh,
steak, or is it just you're happy with the ground beef?
my favorite to have, I guess, would be pork chops. That's my favorite.
Mm.
Um, so I think after that, and I think I said ground beef before, but it's actually ground pork. So after that, I would say, hmm, I don't know if I think I have, it's pork chops, my favorite, but I kind of
Mm.
rotate. I don't, again, because I don't care so much, I'll just rotate. So I'll have ground pork, pork chops, chicken. Uh, Sometimes I'll have sausages. Sometimes I'll have like just eggs. Sometimes I'll have eggs with stuff. I kind of just rotate. And again, because I'm keto, not carnivore, like it's really a matter of like are the kids with us or not? So like if the kids are with
Mm.
us, we're probably more likely to have something where we're gonna have sides. So then I'm gonna have go that way. So that although I never have the sides, that's the interesting thing is that our meals are easy because it's just about me taking the meat and whatever veg if he made some or if I'm having that day. And a lot of times I just don't. I think
Mm.
the the interesting thing for me is that in most scenarios that most people don't care what's on my plate. Right? Like,
Mm.
and it's funny, we think people are going to care. They don't. Whether I'm out with friends or like at a restaurant and the waiter is saying, oh, you don't want that. Oh, you don't want that. Oh, okay. But they don't care. Their job is to
Mm.
bring the food.
I mean, it's been 6 years. This is it for you, right? Like keto slash carnivore for forever.
I'm for sure keto forever.
Mm.
I think the way that I'm eating right now is what it's going to be. So, like, I laugh and I say it's 1 or 2 times a week that I have veg. Sometimes I go weeks without having veg. The
Mm.
only reason that I try to get my avocado and olives in sometimes is because what I've realized is that our gut biome can adapt so quickly that if you don't have the veg that you were planning to eat in rotation, eventually your body doesn't know what to do with it, and then you're going to feel not well, right? So that's the only reason that I think I'm even still having avocado and olives sometimes, because I kind of like them, right? But yeah, like there's a part of me that's a little bit, I'm really, no, I shouldn't say a little bit. I'm very comfortable with the idea that I would never have broccoli again, or I would never have cabbage again, even though I like them. But like if I stopped having them and I felt it was too long between having them, that I would have a stomach issue, I'm fine with that too.
So you mentioned your YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, why you started it, and what kind of content you have on there?
So I started it because I was pissed off. And I wanted to tell people, like, stop giving your money to these companies that are harming your health, because by that point I really started to understand that it was a money grab, right? Um the exercise industry, the diet industry. I mean, so if we consider that we've known since 1915 that insulin is what controls fat gain, right? It's fat storage, I should say. Then how anyone can say that this is a calories in, calories out story? Like, so just there's things that we're told that I was so, by that point, yeah, I started my channel because I wanted people to not have to go through what I went through, to know the reality. That's part one. Another thing was that I had already lost my grandmother and my uncle and my aunt to food related, what I understood now, food related stupidities. And I can't bring them back, but I can tell the people that I can tell. And I totally understand that I'm going to say something, and it's up to each individual to do their own research and like verify, is what Violet's saying making any kind of sense? And I'm hoping that everybody's going to do that. It's part of the reason that when I talk on my channel, I talk about the doctors that I'm referring to, so that they can also go and verify. I'm not saying this, you know, out of nothing. And I think that my ultimate goal, it would make me so happy to know that I've helped like 10,000 people change their lives, or, 1 million people change. Like, I would love to know that people could say, yes, you know what, I heard Violet say this and I researched it and it was true. And I changed that. Like, that's what I want to know. I want to know that I'm saying something that helps somebody make a change towards their better health. Because I didn't need to lose those people at the ages that I did. They were way too young to be gone. So I think that if we all talk about it and share this information, then like people are going to start to realize that there's a different way to do this, right? And maybe even start to understand that some of the things that we are told are helpful are actually what's keeping us needing, so needing that food, and then needing medication, and then eventually needing surgeries. Before any of this happened for my life, I
Mm.
knew someone, and this person was on, I think, like more than 12, 13 medications.
Mm.
And what shocked me is that, so I knew this person, and then like I didn't see them for a while. And then I see them a few years later, and they were like walking much better. And I asked, like, what happened? Like, did you find a solution to your medical
Mm.
issue? And the person actually said, no. What I did is just said, to hell with the medication, stop taking it. And now the person is only taking the one medication for the actual condition. So all the other
Mm.
medications were medications for symptoms that came off that one medication. And they decided, you know what, I'm just going to live with that symptom.
Mm.
Right. And the difference night and day between the person I knew versus it was crazy to me. So I feel like it's hard to know what we know, right? Like it's hard to know what we know and not say it to other people because you're watching them do things or moving towards a situation where, oof, at some point you're going to need medication, or, at some point a doctor is going to suggest a surgery to you that doesn't need to be there. And even weight loss surgeries, I've known people who've had the weight loss surgeries. Do their doctors say anything about what they're eating? Nothing. And what happens? The weight comes back. So all of this stuff just is so maddening because it truly is a money grab. Like, if I say nothing to you, well, you'll be back for some other procedure, right? And how is that fair to this person who's actually trying to improve their health? So it's yeah, frustrating. Frustration, I think, is a big motivation to me as well.
How is the situation in Canada with diabetes, metabolic conditions?
We do a lot of, like, we follow. I feel that sometimes we follow US for certain things, but like, for example, I'm in Montreal. A lot of medical advancement has come out of Montreal. So lucky for us that we do have that. But, and this is the huge but, I feel like we still focus too much on treating symptoms rather than going to the heart of the problem. I mean, so I don't know, you probably do know Dr. Jason Fung. He works out of, I want to say Toronto, here in Canada. And he's been so vocal that you would think that something would be different now in our medical system. Not at all. Not at all. Right? So I do feel that we're slow to move, but I also feel that we're slow to move because maybe our medical and research decisions are not being made by the doctors and researchers who should be making them. I think that there's other situations at play that's causing this, because when you have the research, the results that we see from something as simple as eating properly, how is that not good for us? And yet it's not what's pushed, right? Or the research that's done, because I've seen some research but I don't think it's always Canadian, so I can't necessarily blame that on Canada. But I've seen research where we're looking at the definition of keto, for example, and they have people eating 100 grams of carb and calling them keto. That's not keto. So, like, you didn't test keto, right? There's no way that person got into ketosis. And even if they did, then you'd have to be checking every now person at each of the levels to see, okay, well, where do you get into keto? So, like, and so I don't know. I feel there's a part where we are not trying to solve the actual problem. We're only trying to put band-aids and, give medication and create new surgeries. All of that's towards finance. Okay, I get that. Healthy people are also financially advantageous, though. And I feel like we've forgotten that part. Like, healthy people work. Healthy people provide, like, give back to their situation, right? So I think we're still behind. I don't think we're good for some things, but we're behind.
Violet, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on to share your journey.
I was very happy to talk to your audience. I really hope that this helps somebody.